and I started rewatching like old SNL bits.
Wow.
Subliminal Man still holds up. Or
Yeah.
Mr. Subliminal.
I don't know what it is.
Subliminal
I don't know
Man.
if it's Subliminal Man or Mr. Subliminal.
Like, they hold up.
Yeah,
they totally do.
They
Like 20 odd years later.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times when we're familiar with a sketch that we've seen when we were growing up or whatever, it holds on because it's dear to you and it's familiar to you. But if you had never seen it before.
I hadn't.
Oh, you hadn't?
Like, you were that class of SNL just before I got into it.
Right. Oh, that's a good question. Well, I don't know, but it's good to know that it holds up.
It does. They should bring you back on to do it again.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. And depth perception.
Those are the great kind of sketches to come up with that don't look dated, you know. And but I mean, you even watch some of the original sketches from the show, like with Belushi and stuff, and they still hold up too, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those types of shows where you know, sketches don't seem to age if they're funny.
How do you do that with stand-up and not make jokes age?
Well, you know, you don't talk about like a president, you know, because then somebody watching it, what, Roosevelt?
Yeah,
How old is
really
this
go back,
special? Yeah. So yeah, you just try to stay engaged, and but everything. I think if you're doing stand-up and you're doing a lot of pop culture stuff, it'll be dated.
Do you talk a lot about pop culture? I'm trying to think of Whelmed and how much.
Not too much.
Yeah.
No.
I feel like you've got more personal as the years have gone on.
Yeah.
Is that just an age thing or getting bored of
It's
being
just
more
evolving and
Yeah.
being bored with your old material and trying to come up with some new areas. You know, it's like being a blues musician. You just keep evolving, and you know, you have to live life a little bit, and then you start, you know, creating material from that. And your material should become more dimensional as you get older and you've been doing it for long enough. You know, when you first start out, you're emulating people. You know, when I started, everybody was emulating David Letterman or Richard Pryor or Steve Martin. You know,
Where do you fall into those three when you started? Steve?
More like Steve Martin. Yeah, I liked Steve Martin, Andy Kaufman, and Albert Brooks. Those three guys.
Albert Brooks?
Yeah.
Oh, that must have been huge on Weeds then for you.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to sit down and talk to him. Yeah, so that's and then you eventually develop your own style and you find out who you really are and what you want to say.
And what do you want to say now? What are people going to hear tonight? Or a few days ago when this airs?
Well, they're going to hear basically some things from Whelm, but not overly, and some newer things that I'm working on. And it's you know, it's always it's some of it's observational, some of it's kind of absurd stuff. Others is just spontaneous. You know, it's a little bit of audience participation.
How much comes from the Tuesdays at the Laugh Factory when you have all those? I've seen one of those years ago with you bring a bunch of comics on as well,
Yeah.
and kind of riff with them, right?
Yeah. Some of it comes from that. I mean, that's a good night. That's new material night where I encourage like comics to come up and try new material, and then we sit down and we jam like this and try to come up with more material. And a lot of comics come up with stuff. They go, oh, I came up with a couple of new things. This is great. Yeah, and you know, even I come up with stuff too, so it's good.
Is it hard, like a musician with a set list, where you need to put in new bits to get rid of old bits? Is it hard to throw them away sometimes?
No, not really, because by the time you throw them away, you've been doing them for a long time. But sometimes if you need if you have a good strong ending, that's the hard thing to replace. Is when you have a strong ending, is to replace that with something else because you rely on it so much to get you off the stage.
Do you mean like a set closer, like to end the show? So
something that's really, you know, a crowd pleaser.
Right. What's I don't want to ask you what's closing the show now, but how do
I
you
have
know?
a stripper that closes the show now, and she's quite good. She gets a big round of applause. Yeah.
You talk about living life and crafting the act. What have you been living recently? I mean, South Africa, probably.
Been traveling a lot. Yeah, traveling a lot, and I'm a father now. You know, I have a young kid. You know, just daily life, and you know, it's not so much.
I was trying to segue into blended there, but
yeah,
keep going the other way.
It's kind of how your point of view changes as you get older too. You know, you look at things differently. That's why I came up with the title "Whelmed," but not overly, because I'm not like anxious. I'm not, you know, I'm not having a panic attack, but I'm a little concerned. You know, I'm a little bit whelmed, but not overly.
I saw you on Bill Maher last week. That must be such an interesting point to be in because you know you're going to get hit with topics that are super heady, but yet you also kind of want to be funny. What was that like? How hard is that?
Well, a couple years ago, I woke up and I thought, I want to try some things that scare me, you know, take some risks in life. And two of the things was the Howard Stern show and Real Time with Bill Maher. Because I'm not that political, really. And then the Howard Stern thing, you know, he was on for a long time, and I used to listen to him. He was like an attack dog, you know. And I thought I'd never go on there. I wouldn't want to be put on the spot and ask, you know, about my sex life, and you know, to be in a position to put people down, you know, badmouth people. And then I finally went on there, and I had a great time. It was But I think he's older now and he's more laid back. You know, he's the king of all media now, so he's not really fighting for anything. So we had a good time, and we became friends.
I do want to talk about Blended just because it opened yesterday.
Sure.
Talk about going to South Africa, and it seemed, I think Sandler said this yesterday in the media, he just picks vacation spots now where he wants to shoot movies.
I guess so. Yeah, that was a good one. I've been lucky. I've gone to some nice places to work. I was in New Zealand shooting a movie about 6 years ago called Aliens in the Attic, and then in South Africa doing Blended, and I've been to France to shoot some stuff. But South Africa was unlike any place I've ever been. I mean, it's just it's 20 hours away from where I live, and it's got it's just it's a different language. The people are different. There's animals there that you usually see in zoos. They're
Are you talking about penguins?
There's penguins
and
in the Cape of Good Hope, yeah, down south by Cape Town, and then they had the Big Five there. Not the sporting goods store. There's a sporting goods store called the Big Five, but these are the Big Five animals. And we went on like 5 safaris, and that was great. It's just and the people that we worked with are great. There was a little bit of a language barrier. I remember we ordered some pizza one night, and a guy came up with peas.
Really?
So just go back and get some za.
Are those sets? Are there a lot of improv on those sets?
On those Sandler movies,
yeah,
not so much improv, but trying new jokes.
Yeah,
it's like that joke's
like
let's try this
on
one. Yeah, there's always like a writer on there punching it up.
Does that go back to SNL? Like, does that training really prepare you for stuff like that?
Yeah, because in between the rehearsal and the live show, you kind of are always doing last-minute punch-ups for these sketches.
There's so many SNL questions to get to that people sent me that I kind of want to get to, but and this one kind of interests me. What was writing Weekend Update like every week?
Well, I liked doing Weekend Update. It was a sit-down job, so but I was still continuing to do the sketches too. So I had a full plate there, and it was a lot of work because I had to write jokes for it, as many as I could on Friday. Because if you wrote them earlier, then all the other late night talk show hosts had done them already, or covered those topics. And Lorne Michaels had hired this catering company that would come up to the 17th floor on Saturday morning to try to entice the writers to come up and have breakfast, read the paper, and write jokes. But a lot of them would come up, read the paper, have breakfast, and just that's it. They read the paper, But Al Franken would come up, and some of the younger writers would come in, the new writers. But I had to pay people to write jokes for me, in Los Angeles. They'd fax them in. I'd give them like $50 a joke out of my pocket, and I'd write some jokes. So it was kind of a tough gig, but it was fun.
Did you ever know that Franken was going to, did anyone realize back then that was going to become of him?
Well, we knew he was a political animal. He loved politics. He watched C-SPAN. He got us, all watching C-SPAN. And he used to go hang out with the Clintons at these Renaissance events they had in Washington. And I guess he knew them a little bit. And so, yeah, I mean, it surprised me that he actually got voted as a senator because, of his past, and being on SNL. He's a comedian. Who's going to believe him or trust him?
There's hope for everyone.
But everything's changed now. You could have you could have DUIs. You could have a history of coke or marijuana and still become president now.
I rewatched the finale of Weeds the other day as well in preparation for this. And the last scene, you pass it around to everybody, or Doug tokes, I shouldn't say you.
Yeah.
But then you whisper something to them, everyone laughs, and then they fade to black. What do you say? Was that in the script, or
No.
Were you just riffing around with them?
It was not in the script, and I don't remember what I said. I really don't remember. Yeah, I wish I remember what I said, but I don't.
It's okay, you don't need to. In Huffington Post, here's things you did, so now I'm just going to quote things you said to yourself. In Huffington Post a couple of years ago, when the show was ending, you said, Doug's a reckless person, you're more of a controlled person, that's what you're going to miss most. 2 years later, 3 years later, is it?
It turns out I don't miss that.
Do you miss anything about Doug or anything about that?
No, I think we covered Doug. He was. We saw all the sides of him, but it was fun playing that. It was fun living through him vicariously, and being that reckless. But I like being in control more.
I'm gonna let you go. So we do something called 5 questions. 5 quick questions.
Yeah.
1 word answers. Script or improv?
Improv.
Stage or screen?
Screen.
Lennon or McCartney?
Lennon.
Carlin or Pryor?
Pryor.
In 1 word, Kevin Nealon.
Tall.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.